Origin Gens, welcome to GWX, and it's been a while, but this is another Lazerpig video. So can we talk about Trump's new battleship? Is that a new battleship? I didn't know that. I guess Trump is ramping up military things, new planes, I guess new battleship. It's gonna be interesting. I like Lazerpig and his take on military things, like F-35 and M1 Abrams, and his videos are really good. Let's waste one.
No, you can't, Brit.
Whoa, start.
This joke was brought to you by GamerSubs. Remember to use code LASER for some amount of money off some purchases in the store that they sell things. I'm Lazerpig, and that's a drink that you put into water to make it taste nicer, and it gives you energy. That's all I got for this ad. Go away. Okay, hi, I've sobered up a little. Can we talk about this thing? Can we talk about the Trump-class USS Defiant battleship? No, you can't, Britbot Euro poor. You fail to understand Trump's genius, for America has finally won the Albonia challenge, for nothing again shall ever be so uncredible. Cry, liberals. And now, obviously, this is being shit on from a great height by not just the Naval.
Okay, it's called Trump class. Man, this is like... There is a time where when is psychology relevant? And this is one of those times. There is over-exaggerated things of oh, if you do this, you this type of category. If you do this, you that type of category. And that's usually exaggerated. But if you do shit like this, where you put your name everywhere and you're known for that, but even then, you're gonna rename something John F. Kennedy Center, or now it's Trump and John F. Kennedy Center. By the way, should I name this with some other president of the past? No, it's a Trump class. How fragile is your ego and overall, self-esteem and stability all around? Psychology comes into play, right? This is too much, man. Trump class, you have to make it Trump class. Isn't that bit of on the nose? What are you doing? That's insane.
Community, but the entire military community as a whole. I don't think I've ever seen this community so united over something ever in its lifetime. And there are reasons for this. If you don't know anything about modern-day naval warfare, or you think you do but you actually don't, you are probably going to find this very confusing as to why exactly. At the end of the day, it's just a big-ass missile barge. It's built to fire as many missiles at as many targets as physically possible. How could that possibly be a bad thing? And the truth is, it's not. More VLS capability is what America needs right now. The problem is, this is the absolute worst way to go about doing this. If America puts this into production as the backbone of its new gold fleet, they might as well just hand the oceans over to Xi Jinping today. Put a little fucking bow in it, why don't you? Come on, Xi, I'll bend over for you. I've been a good boy. I'm fucking ready. And if you are confused as to why, don't worry. I'm going to explain in incredibly simplistic terms. In fact, just to make sure you are paying attention.
What the fuck? What the fuck? This is so true. I've seen videos of people shorts and things where people are doing their own thing and half of the screens is somebody playing video game or Subway Surfer or something. And I've seen some kids scrolling through that. I'm like, what the fuck kind of world we are living in? This is reality. We are not even trying to be subliminal messages or anything like that. No, directly on the face. Fuck you. You have very, very low retention. Okay, here's a video game and here's a half of the video. There you go. We are not even trying anymore.
So firstly, it's not a battleship. Not in the way that we understand battleships anyway. This is a product of our good friends, the reformers, the people who advocate against advanced technology and constantly propose returning to an era.
You remove the video game. I'm sleeping now. Oh no, Bob. Put back the video game.
of single-engine jet fighters armed with nothing but cannons and commercial radio sets, using great swarm tactics against the lesser populated countries of Russia and China, because they didn't think that far ahead. Now, they've been desperate to recreate the age of the battleship, largely because they operate on logic that is not fundamentally wrong, but incredibly outdated. Their view of war comes from the lessons of World War II, run through the filter of whatever the troops were complaining about in Vietnam, and thus kind of stops around 1967. Largely because it was around the Vietnam time that the hero bureaucratic soldier started to become a thing. Former military personnel, most notably officers, who rose to prominence by criticizing the leadership decision of Robert McNamara and the wave of controversies that the US military faced around the same period. They saw themselves as rebels fighting the good fight against the stubborn, corrupt, bureaucratic incompetence of the Pentagon. McNamara's not a soldier, not like us. How could he possibly understand? It's just unfortunate that none of their ideas on what the future of warfare would look like actually came to fruition. In fact, they were proven to be so painfully...
Okay, fundamentals are kind of there, but yeah, modern warfare is completely different. As it's seen in Ukraine-Russia war, tanks becomes basically obsolete at a level that would have never happened in World War II. So yeah, it's just technology alone gives you an insane edge. Especially like smaller things like, Amazon-style drones, FPV drones, and like stingers, javelins, just basic modular small-scale weapons changes the battlefield completely and like destroys very costly equipments. So like, yeah, they can't like, they couldn't have foreseen this. So taking lessons from back then is kind of like, yeah, we shouldn't do that. Like, you take lessons, but like, don't build shit based on that.
Incorrect. Had any of their ideas made it into service, campaigns like Desert Storm would have probably ended in disaster. And many, like James Burton and John Boyd, people we've covered before, did not take this well. Burton wrote a book, which later became a film, which has fallen out of copyright, and I make ample use of its soundtrack, in which he painted himself as the hero, fighting behind the scenes for the good of the common soldier. Boyd would be painted as a hero by his fellow reformers in a book by Robert Coram, in which he would go on to claim to be the proud inventor of every jet plane in American history, or just the good ones at least, as well as the true inventor behind the battle plan that led to the great success of Operation Desert Storm. That left hook, that was all his idea. Apparently. Little, if anything, of what they claim is actually true, and that opens a whole new world that I've poked and prodded at before, and it is something that I am looking into, but every time I look...
I like how they just took the element of like, okay, Victor writes the history. You know what? I can literally write a fucking book and I'm right. There you go. Anybody finds out, there'll be a book for it and I did it. There you go. That's something.
Look at it. It just gets bigger. I am prodding at a dam which keeps behind a tsunami of literal vomiting shit, and my stick can only get so pointy. Needless to say, when you take their outdated ideology and apply it to the real world, you understand why things like the A-10 have been retained in service for so long. In our reality, the A-10 is a heavily outdated piece of equipment with a pitifully small service ceiling and an even more pathetic top.
Yeah, I wouldn't be so sure about that. If you go against something like top countries like China, India, Europe, which why would US go against that? Like most of them. China is like very extreme scenario. Something like Venezuela, like they are fighting right now, or smaller countries, Vietnam and things. Yeah, A-10 would be really good. Like, okay, yeah, sure, they have like S-300s and like shit like that, but I think A-10 can get around all that, right? With decent enough like flare, whatever it's called, right? Yeah, I think you can like walk around that.
Speed, traits that saw it pulled from frontline service in Afghanistan. It carries less weapons than the newer F-15s, cannot carry the more advanced weapons developed for the F-35, is incredibly vulnerable to shoulder-mounted ground-to-air missiles, and because of the patchwork of upgrades duct-taped onto it, has become incredibly expensive to maintain. But in the world of the reform...
Yeah, but isn't it slower than F-15? Don't you need slow flying plane for attack purposes?
Close air support, as the lessons of World War II and Vietnam clearly taught us, requires something that can fly low and slow and hang around for long periods of time in the same area. If you hear a clicking noise in the background, by the way, that's just my radiator. I'm not turning it off. It's fucking cold in here. They ignore the idea that this might no longer be relevant and laugh when they're told that it is a job being done better by drones, helicopters, and even the B-1 bomber, because the A-10 is so fucking bad at its job that its incapability has left gaps in the capabilities of the United States military so large that a $300 million aircraft the size of a sports field has to do close air support. And instead, they will merrily...
Ooh, that is kind of true though. Like A-10 is very specific what it can do. In broader scenarios with like bigger targets and just by quantity alone, yeah, A-10 would struggle. It's better to just carpet bomb with B-1 Lancer.
Point to any of the accounts from Iraqi veterans that claim an A-10 saved their life. All three of them. That picture of the heavily damaged A-10 that made it back home on half a wing, and remind you that this saved lives. So the A-10 sticks around for another 100 years, all of which could be fixed if we just here, right now, all of us just admit the only reason we like this is because it's got a giant rotary cannon on the front, and that is cool.
No, America's run by feelings, as their own politician says. I don't care about the facts, I only care about what people feel. I get people like that in my own comment. So, yeah, when science and facts are put aside and feelings are first, yeah, forget about it.
In
That
essence,
shit is
the
cool, though.
reformers believe they know how war works and what frontline troops need, and even if it has been proven time and time again that their ideology is outdated and built on the work of egotistical madmen who didn't really understand what the lessons of Vietnam were and spent more time writing fan fictions of themselves than doing anything actually useful. Their propaganda is absolutely everywhere. I'll give you an example. Do you think the US Air Force in Vietnam was struggling against MiGs until they put a gun on the Phantom? Well, that's not quite true. That's just reformer bullshit. Well, it's partially true, but it's like saying the most important part of the peanut butter and jelly sandwich is the plate. I'll divulge more into this at a different time, but know when the Trump administration talks about the need for battleships to come back, this is where it's coming from. The reformers were as much a part of Project 2025 as anything else, and you've seen the effects they've had on this administration, from Musk claiming he could take down stealth jets with digital cameras linked to ChatGPT, to the cancellation of the M10.
That is the stupidest shit. Like, that is like so much on the nose. I hated that shit. I don't hate Musk, but his pompousness were like, oh, I'm no better. Like, I'm basically Einstein here. I hate that shit. Oh, the modern stealth planes are so weak, I can just take it out. Fuck you, no you can't. Don't try to bullshit. Like if it were that easy, Russia and China would have figured it out long ago. You wouldn't have stealth plane. The concept of stealth plane would not exist because it's just not possible. Clearly it's possible. If every country on the world is trying to get that, clearly like it's worked just enough to like be effective.
And Booker, the shelving of the Navy's 6th generation fighter program, a complete misunderstanding of what a VHS radar does, and the reignition of the reformers' lightweight fighter program, and now the return of battleships. They've been trying to figure out a way to have battleships back as part of the Navy for decades at this point, from weird and creative ideas to keeping the Iowas in service to a series of designs involving railgun armed triangles. The reason being is threefold. Firstly, returning to the age of battleships will dethrone the carrier as the standard flagship in the US Navy, something the reformers have never accepted as proper. The US flagship should be a big, powerful thing with guns and missiles, not a landing pad for...
Ah, fuck you. Come on, this is like a floating city. If there is a command center, it's an aircraft carrier. There are planes on board that can fuck shit up left and right, which they have their own weapon. How badass can you be? A battleship can launch missiles and fire whatever, great. Aircraft carrier can launch 10 fucking planes that would fuck shit up left and right. Imagine aircraft carrier with like 10, 15 F-35s. Or future version of that. What is the new one apart from F-47? The upgraded version of F-35 that they're trying to build. Shit like that. Imagine that with drones. Are you telling me that's not overpowered? An aircraft carrier that is so big and so powerful that it can power a city. The level of personnel in that, like that alone makes it powerful. A battleship is like a weapon. This is a command center.
Aircraft. Aircraft should only be a supporting role for the ships, not the other way around. A lot of reformers also come from the Air Force and harbor a sort of petty revenge mentality against the Navy that would take me far too long to explain. But needless to say, the reform...
Okay, if Russia had air dominance, there would be no Ukraine-Russia war. It would have been over by now, very easily, if Russia had proper air dominance. Because air dominance matter, planes matter. There's a reason why US spends completely into like air dominance. That is their doctrine. US's first doctrine is to do air dominance and then everything follows. They don't try to do anything else. There's a lacking weaponry in certain sectors that Russia, China has, even India has, the US doesn't. Because US just think, if I have air dominance, why the fuck do I need that? That's how good air dominance is. So yeah, planes are not some secondary thing. If you have a powerful plane on an aircraft carrier, you're basically powerhouse. Just send an aircraft carrier someplace, Middle East or wherever, with 15 F-35s and see what happens. That alone is an army of itself.
Reformer's position has
Well,
been that
you know what I
carriers
mean, military.
should be smaller and more numerous, and large battleship-type warships are what does the main fighting. This leads on to the second point. Sometimes Johnny Marine gets it into his head that, hey, I'm assaulting this beachhead, and it would be really nice if there were a lot more explosions happening on enemy positions. And of course, when the reformers think shore bombardment, they don't think aircraft or missiles or why the hell are we performing an opposed beach landing in the 21st century? No, they think battleships. So proposals behind the future battleship project has largely been centered around proving it to be a requirement.
What? Okay, seriously, China, Russia doesn't suck at the level that they are thinking. If there is a heavy moving battleship, they can fucking take it down. The positives of aircraft carriers is they can stay away from the range of fire and just send stealth planes. That's how they're effective. What you gonna do with battle? If you're with, let's say you're attacking China, your battleship is close enough to attack Chinese ground, they'll fucking shoot you down very easily. You're slow and they have very powerful missiles, hypersonic missiles. This modern world, battleship, what the fuck does that do?
For offshore bombardment. The result is the DT-21 project, which eventually resulted in the Zumwalt. And the Zumwalt? Yeah, that's got its own host of problems. But for quickness, the guns don't work, the stealth aspect is difficult to maintain and not as impressive as advertised. The thing costs about 8 billion a ship, and it can't do the one thing it's supposed to do, offshore bombardment. There have also now been about 15 reports on this thing proving its vulnerability to aircraft and long-range missile fire. But, because this is where the reformer has to slam on the brakes, oh, they hate this thing, they hate it with a passion, but they can't hate it too much, because then you might get the impression that the concept behind it, a battleship of the future, doesn't work. Oh no, dear boy. This cannot be allowed. So instead, every effort must be made to pin the failures of the Zumwalt onto everything the reformers specifically hate. Mainly stealth and those fat cat bureaucrats up on the hill. So obviously we need to try again. And what we end up with is this. A battleship for the modern age, 100 times the big. A ship with so many obvious design problems, if you've dipped your toes into any military discussion within the past few days, you should know them all by sheer osmosis. Chief among them, what is powering this thing? Oh, gas turbines.
You have nuclear things that you can just power it with. Why not use that? Like, you're one of the unique countries who can just do that.
Deep breaths, Lazerpig. Deep breaths. Deep breath, it's okay. The lion does not question the pains in his chest. It is just the heart requesting another energy drink.
Okay, so the Zumwalts were at one point going to be fitted with a railgun. They are also gas turbine, and their generators can produce just enough power to have one railgun function. The problem being that the ship would basically have to be in low power mode to fire it. Railguns take up a lot of power.
This feels like Martin Saito-Pant's video. You know that game? Very fiddle around with like ships, building ships, and there are many factions. I forgot the name. Something. You know, just like last year, I think he made those videos. This feels like that. There is also a faction that looks very advanced. Some of the stealth ship looks like that. But it's very stupid. You build the ship, you just put one cannon on it. Piss cannon, as he used to say it. This sounds like that shit.
And I mean, so much so that while the Zumwalt is firing its one railgun, it's basically incapable of doing anything else. And they want to take the same concept with the same power and apply it to a ship twice the size with 3 VLS batteries, missiles of which they cancelled the order for and reduced in scale the production of their replacement, a giant frontal railgun, development of which was ceased in 2021, 2 massively overpowered laser guns, 50 times more powerful than the ones currently on service on British frigates, as well as a number of high-power Odin countermeasures, one of the most advanced and complicated radar systems ever proposed, all directed and controlled by an AI system. Not to mention all the other bells and whistles that a ship needs power for, including, for example, its engines. There is no gas turbine engine powerful and compact enough to fit onto that ship that is capable of producing that amount of power. Essentially, it is severely underpowered, meaning whoever has to captain this monstrosity has to choose between offensive capabilities, defensive capabilities, having the radar switched on, or being able to move.
Alright, this to me is insane, especially when it comes to America. USA has always been like something of an overpowered thing when it comes to any kind of engineering. You usually make something and it's just like how F-15 was, overdoing things. At least that's how you're known around the world. Like you're gonna overdo shit, make it too powerful and too better. Okay, US is actually struggling to make something functional. Which age are we entering right now? That's what I'm questioning. You don't have engineers, you don't have people, you don't have money to make a proper battleship? Come on. Why can't you put a nuclear reactor in it? Why can't you do that?
Now, there is a solution to this, and that is to make the damn thing nuclear, but obviously that leads into another problem. Given the ship's size, where are you going to build it?
You can't even like give contracts to someone else. There's one of the videos I watched that there is a literal law that it has to be built on US land employed by US people. So you can't even give contract to someone else.
The degradation of the US naval shipyards has been a sore point for US naval fans and experts for a long time, and the number of shipyards the US actually has that could build this thing is quite pathetically low. And as has already been pointed out, those shipyards are prepping to build the new Ford-class carriers to replace the Nimitz, a carrier class that is now reaching 50 years old. This means the US will either have to cancel its new carrier program or build this new ship one at a time.
There's no way in blue hell they are gonna cancel aircraft carriers. That is naval dominance. US would never sacrifice that.
Time, meaning assuming it does take them a record-breaking 3 years to build and outfit this new ship, something that might be possible if any of the proposed systems for the ship actually existed, it would take them a whopping 75 fucking years to build all proposed 25 in the class, meaning the Gold Fleet would finally reach operational readiness in the year of our Lord 2101. Now again, parts of this are not a bad thing. The proposed systems on it are not bad in concept, and it would be great to see these things being funded, and there is a slight chance that this ship is being pushed on the hopes that they could get funding for those weapon systems so they could be developed in time for when the US actually needs them. A move that is so genius, I know Pete Hagsbreath has nothing to do with it. But the problem with that is, while it would be good that those systems exist at some point, they are not what the US needs right now. Okay, maybe you're still scratching your head going, why shouldn't we have a big ship with a lot of firepower? Okay, sorry, I'm not doing a good job of explaining. Battleships used to serve a function. They were the ultimate conclusion of
You can't have it, first of all, because of all the issue. And like I fucking said, what you gonna do with it? Modern technology basically makes it obsolete. People are questioning, is the aircraft carriers obsolete? Because that is like the bottom of the level of like something that's compromised. Why? Because you don't need to, like bring aircraft carrier too close. You can just, keep it close enough and just use your planes. Even that is people like, maybe that's obsolete. You're gonna bring this to shore, close to shore or whatever for bombardment or anything. They just shoot you down. Like, yeah, they have a hypersonic missile, very accurate. Ship stealth is not gonna be that stealthy. planes move around really fast, so that's why stealth works. In this, yeah, eventually they'll just figure out where they're. There you go. They'll just shoot the missile at you. Only thing I can see in the future, anything ocean related or what naval related, as I say, is like unmanned drones which are submarine, and eventually they can come out like a fucking Davy Jones ship. If they figure that thing out, that would be like in the future, it would work. Any conventional ships, they're already questionable. It's like tanks. It's very easy to take them out. Aircraft carrier makes sense because they're way too big. Killing them is not so easy, and they have planes on it, so it's like floating city. Why are you investing this much into this thing, right? Like cheap hypersonic missiles can take it out.
Of the line ship. Big guns, lots of range, heavy armor to deal with incoming firepower, but that ideology has changed. Ships no longer get into neat little lines to fight battles, and as guns have improved over the generations, the ideology of what a ship's armor is has also changed. I'm going to talk a little bit about battleship armor here because for some reason they want to armor this thing, and for the life of me I can't understand why. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a detour, and I apologize, but the best way to describe the evolution of ship armor is to look at the Battle of Denmark Strait during the Second World War. 4 battleships in a line shooting at each other, as God intended. The Bismarck plus escort, the Prince Eugen that no one cares about, sinks the British battlecruiser the Hood and seriously damages another British warship by the name of Prince of Wales, which also no one cares about. Massive moral victory for the Germans. Now, Hood was destroyed by a lucky shot, which penetrated her magazine, ripping the ship basically in half. But what's lesser known is that second British battleship, the Prince of Wales, suffered the exact same shot in the exact same place, hitting the central magazine directly. The reason the Prince of Wales didn't explode spectacularly is because, well, its armor protected the ship. The shell from Bismarck was found backwards and likely crushed, and a lot of people claim it was just sheer luck that the shell didn't detonate. But it wasn't luck. It was the armor. It had done exactly what it had been required to do. See, the Hood, okay, I know the Hood is not a battleship per se, it's a battle cruiser, meaning it wouldn't have had as thick armor versus Prince of Wales or Bismarck, which are dedicated battleships. Details. The real problem is that Hood is what we call a pre-Jutland design. Now, Jutland is a massive naval battle that happened in World War I. It's one of the last great naval line battles in history, and it changed how we view naval tactics and battleship design going forward. As such, post-Jutland ships are built differently, with an emphasis on armor being built not to deflect an incoming shot, but to minimize the damage once it happens. Rather than prevent a penetration, it just accepts that penetration will happen. But by using different materials at different angles and adding gaps, you can change how a shell reacts when it penetrates you. Changing its trajectory, causing it to lose momentum, preventing it from detonating, versus the armor on the Hood, which was just trying to straight up prevent penetration and couldn't really do anything about it when it happened. This is
like how there's also another element, I think, which I'm pretty sure I'm right. Like ships are made in a way that's not really heavy armor, but it's like sectioned off. Even one section gets damaged, the ship is fine. It's like crumple zones in cars. Before, cars used to be really sturdy, heavy metal, heavy fucking walls and everything. But if it crashed, like, yeah, it would just basically crush the cabin inside. Like, what's the point of that? Hummer is a classic example of that. Hummer H2 was very big, very thick, but it killed, like people inside when it crashed. Very unsafe. Now there are crumple zones where like it crumples slowly. So impact dissipates. These are basically like if it's like heavy armored one shot could damage the whole ship because how it's like uniformly like sturdy. But if you make like modular type way, like one part gets damaged, like ship is still fine, only that is damaged. This is why there is no one missile that takes out big aircraft carrier and shit like that. Why? Because of this reason. You'll shoot something and that will get damaged, ship is still functional. That is the modern world, I think.
main difference between the philosophy of armor pre and post Jutland. Okay, there's a lot of other things that Jutland does, but that's the thing most relevant to our discussion here. Ship armor starts to shift away from the idea of deflecting damage and instead becomes about accepting it's going to happen and minimizing the effects of it when it does. This boils down to what we have today. There is no amount of armor in the world that can prevent a missile ripping a hole in your hull, unless it's like a mile
Hypersonic missile. What armor is gonna stop that?
of concrete. I don't know. So a ship's defense relies not on armor, but three key things: detection and maneuverability, active defense systems, and damage control. Essentially, your ability to remain unseen from long ranges, your ability to detect incoming threats from long ranges, your ability to maneuver to avoid said threats, your ability to counter said threats, and your ability to rapidly deal with damage when it happens, preventing the loss of the ship. Once you understand that, you start to realize that smaller ships, frigates with semi-stealth capabilities and a lot of firepower, are more useful than anything else. Hi, it's post-production Lazerpig here. I just want to get this out because I think I can simplify this a bit better. Now I'm editing and I'm not sober, but I'm in that special pre-drunk where your mind just works better because it doesn't scream as loud. So there's this phrase you come across quite a lot called quantity over quality. Why should I build 3 of the best when I can have like 40 of the second best and win through numbers? It's a dumb argument, but regardless of which side of that philosophy you're on, you cannot tar the entire military with the same brush. Quality works better than quantity when it comes to things like tanks and aircraft, but there are different degrees of that ideology, and it all works on different.
Okay, no, that ideology works everywhere technically. If you see it okay, like I'm gonna say this like this: F-22 is really powerful, F-47 is really powerful, F-35, 5F-35 is really powerful. And compared to something like, let's just say, Sukhoi 30, great, that's not equivalent, is it? Rafales, really good, but not equivalent. What if 5F-35 versus 80 Rafales? Who's gonna win? Is 5F-35 gonna take out 80 Rafales? Really? Is that really going to happen? What about 150 Rafales? So there is a time when number becomes overwhelming. So, like here's another example. Say your room is dirty, right? You want to clean that room 90%, like, oh, it's clean. When you look at it, it's clean. It will take like 15 minutes. Okay, now you want to clean this 95%, only 5% more. This will take you over an hour. 97%, holy shit, it will take you 6 hours because now you really need to scour through what is dirty, what is not, and really detail, like with thin brush, clean gaps and everything. 99%, oh my god, this is very surgical. It will take you a day or 24 hours and more. 100%, oh, you're gonna need scientists, and you need to scan the room like properly, like laboratory level, like properly clean it up. It will take you a week and more than that. But how much did you get? From 90 to only 10% more. You went from 15 minutes to fucking week. There is a point where how much you're getting back with the quality. Is quality good enough? Sometimes USA really needs to ask themselves, like, yeah, this is nice to have, but what did you sacrifice trying to get this quality? And who are you fighting anyway? F-15 analogy again. The opponent was MiG-25. F-15 was really powerful. Okay, in that way, like you assume MiG-25 was something entirely different than it was. But imagine something like that. You're trying to fight a MiG-25. F-15 is probably overkill. So if you need to, like China is just like amping up numbers of naval ships, while USA has tonnage, great. But sometimes numbers can be overwhelming. So USA need to ask themselves, like, maybe we need to think about quantity as well, not just quality.
Levels. If you're at war and you need replacements yesterday, spending several years building the most perfect weapon is never going to work when literally any old thing produced in the thousands would work just as well. But if you're...
And especially if the war breaks out, you're going to be screwed because your high quality thing will require high quality, like spare parts and money. You probably won't be able to keep it up. While something else very simple. Think of like weapons. AK-47 is really loved. Why? Because very simple. Anyone can like repair it and change it. Very easy parts. That would work really well in a massive war. really complicated weapon. How are you going to repair it? Like, yeah. Same thing with the cars. Like I have multiple cars, but one of the main cars I always keep is like, like made in India. Is really good, but it's something that's famous because I can just find parts for it. I'm not gonna think about my BMW that way, am I? Right? Like, okay, I'm gonna have issue with parts. I'll probably have to put my car into garage for like a week and more if something goes wrong, like something like a dual clutch gearbox or something. Shit like that.
In peacetime and you've got the time and resources, it's better to hold out for quality, because when action does happen, you lose a lot less men within the first 24 hours, and men who have survived that first 24 hours of combat are worth their absolute weight in gold. What I'm saying is, this is a very simplified way of explaining it, but what I'm saying is it's a way, way, way more complicated than, oh, I can have 5 of the best or 1,000 of the third best. Anyway, regardless,
it depends
what works
on
for
which
tanks
you talk about, yeah.
doesn't work for boats. It's better to have a lot more boats of lower quality firing more missiles than fewer boats of higher quality firing fewer missiles. But that same logic does not apply to the missiles themselves. It's better to be firing fewer higher quality missiles than more.
Yeah, the question here comes basically of accuracy. That's what he's saying. Like in this analogy, with all things being equal and equal being accuracy. If you have many quantity, but like most of them are useless because they are not accurate, what's the point of that? So you need good missiles that can accurately hit something. If you hit 1,000 missiles, only 5 hit, that was not really like, at that point have 10 quality missiles and not 1,001. But if you have like decent enough accuracy, yeah, number is better.
Lesser quality missiles, because there is a saturation point where you physically cannot fire enough missiles to mathematically compensate. So you need a lot of stuff that is sort of in the middle, as the kids would say, middle of the road, mid-quality boats firing lots of high-quality missiles. This is what the rest of the world does, as well as China. Chinese frigates leave a lot to be desired, but their missile tech is incredibly advanced, on par with what we have today, and may even exceed it on some levels. But why? Why that tactic specifically? Well, that's the big question. What is it about this thing that is so
How do you know China's missiles are that good though? You only have data of them like demonstrating. You don't really have, like, China's never been to war. Like, how do you know that? Until China actually get with some kind of a fight, how are you gonna know? Because Chinese missiles are the one Pakistan used against India. All of them were shot down. Maybe they were not the best one China have, but still, like, how do you know?
problematic purely on a tactical level? Okay, so if you're attacking, say, a fleet of 50 warships, you need to fire 50 missiles at minimum, which means you need the capability to launch 50 missiles at minimum. But the reality is that you'll probably need to fire about 250, which is about 3 per ship. Now that's going to come with its own challenges, especially if you're attacking a fleet with an integrated multi-layered defense plan. Long-range interception missiles, short-range interception missiles, point defense systems, decoys, high maneuverability, all these things are going to make it harder for your missiles to get through, which is why you fire 3 at each ship. And then you fire again, so there's a second wave for them to deal with, and then you fire a third, each wave increasing the chances that one of your missiles will break through that defense. Because if you sink one of their boats before they've had time to fire back at you, that's less missiles coming towards you in response, which makes it easier for your integrated defense system to deal with. But it means that your fleet is going to end up having to fire like 750 missiles. And you need to fire at each ship roughly 3 missiles 3 times, because unless you have eyes on the enemy fleet, they're all going to be blips on the radar. And how do you know the capabilities of each one? You have to take them all down. Now, consider how much easier it would be if instead of 50 ships of equal size and capability, you had to just fire at one big ship. Its little escorts, these are the ships the US is planning to run as escorts, by the way, cannot do anything if that main big ship is lost. So all they can do is fall back to the carrier and wait for the next attack, not lining up to return fire. And if you need an entire fleet of little ships to protect the big one, then how is that better or more economical than a fleet of mid-tier ships? This is why, in the most simplistic term that I can think of, why no one builds big ships like this anymore. The USS Trump class, or whatever the...
Similar shit happened with tanks. German tried to build like what is a mouse tank, which would have been like people say it would have just been like target practice if it were built. I think it was just a concept, right? It was never built. Shit like that. Like, why would you have a big ship where people can just target you? It makes it easier for people.
End up naming it might look good on paper, but the reality is it's just a big target. And for that, you don't get much in the way of actual firepower. Even with all the huge amounts of VLS systems and that railgun, assuming it works, you're only getting a little over the firepower of one flight-free Arleigh Burke, a ship which is a third the price. And this is based on the current estimate of 8 billion per ship, which this is planning to cost, which is an incredibly low ball. There's no way that's not going
8 billion per ship? Holy.
to balloon far beyond that. I mean, better estimates are roughly 15 billion per ship, which for that you could buy 2 Zumwalts or nearly 4 next generation destroyers, which will have the capabilities equal to that of the Trump class anyway, with just
Oh my god, that is an insane pricing. Yeah, this, like, look, man, if you want this to be effective, put a nuclear, like generator inside, use that to generate laser weapons that you're developing and create anti-defense laser weapon. That is the only way to make this effective. Because like you said, this is like a target practice. Only way to do that is make such a high power lasers, multiple of them, that they can instantaneously take down any incoming missiles. Lasers are quicker. We have computers that are like fast enough to do that. We just need lasers. Just put lasers there. Develop that tech before building this. Then this could be effective. Like, nobody can touch me because I have laser weapons.
slightly less missiles per ship. And all of that can be built faster, and you don't need to delay a carrier to build one. So this thing is utterly pointless. But even then, that's just concentrating on naval warfare via ships. There's another element of naval warfare we've been ignoring to this point. Anti-ship missiles need to be big. In fact, they're huge, because they require a lot of fuel to get anywhere. Why? Because air is thick, a lot thicker than you think it is. The faster you push into it, the more it pushes back. Yeah. And it's even worse over the ocean. Close to the water, air gets moist due to haze and evaporation, which means that air is always wet, which makes it harder to get through. I'm simplifying here, but you get the picture.
Yeah, if you go over 200 miles per hour, air becomes like a jelly. This was the issue Bugatti Veyron faced. They just needed 15 miles per hour more, and they had to put 200 horsepower more than the original one. They went from 1,000 horsepower to 1,200 horsepower just for like 15 miles per hour more. They got something like 245, 248 miles per hour in the original one. They were trying to get something like 260 or 267 or something. Oh, that's the 200 horsepower was needed for that. So you need much higher, it's like cutting through the jelly. That's just 200 miles per hour. Imagine more.
Picture. So wouldn't it be far easier to take that anti-ship missile and instead of launch it from the ocean, you take it really high up where the air is thin, and that way you can get much, much, much more range out of it. And if you outrange the target ship, they can't fire back at you. This is why carriers are now flagships, not battleships. Railguns are awesome, and I want to see triangle railgun battleships as much as anyone, but they don't outrange a carrier. Now, don't get me wrong. This kind of ship could work, in theory, if powered correctly and given enough time for the flaws to be ironed out, but it will never be as useful or as practical or just as deadly as spending...
That's a meaningless thing you're saying. Like, it doesn't matter if it works, it's gonna work. People are gonna love it, that's it. Sometimes it's all about show of strength, and it's a Trump class. It would be an apt name. Something that's not really useful, but it works. And it's just for show, Trump class. That would just make sense. Yeah, I think when it becomes, in future, it will be ironed out. America does that. And I think laser weapon will be put there as anti-defense things. I'm hoping you put nuclear reactors on that, find a way to do it. Then it would work.
Spending all that time and resources on smaller ships instead. Essentially, if you want this to work, You don't need 25. You need 150. And assuming you can build 2 of these things at once, you know what? Fuck it. 3 at once. And it only takes you 3 years to go from breaking steel to fully combat ready. You're still looking at the year of our Lord 2176 before you finally have a fleet capable.
Dude, do you know how far away that is? I'm not sure if we would be alive, but I'm not sure if USA would be a thing then. I'm not sure countries as a concept would be same. You're like, okay, what, we're gonna like kumbaya sing? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying something like European Union level shit might happen to the world, where borders are just symbolic. We are living global economy. Wars itself might become like a localized thing and not country wars. I can envision that. Because time and, you know, like European Union showed like Europe can thrive, like union is between them. And for business is really good. Now imagine that at a global scale, where like everything being equal, people are prosperous. Right now it doesn't happen because some countries are really poor. It doesn't benefit the rich countries, so it's not fair. One day where everybody likes like good enough and they do that, everybody's gonna benefit. So that is so far away. Like by the time the ships finish, like would we need it?
Of matching what China expects to be capable of in 2050.
But Lazerpig,
You might say,
big ship, lots of missiles. What's the problem?
I see I'm still not getting through to you. Hang on, let me bring this joke back.
So let's introduce you to
A good old friend of non-credible defense. This is the Battlecruiser 2000 concept from 1988. It is quite literally a missile barge. It's efficient, it's low cost, it's a good design. On paper. See if your thought process is big ship, many missiles, good, and then it stops. This is a great ship design. And you might question, why is this not in service? This is cheaper to run than a Coast Guard cutter, and it delivers 5 times the firepower than even the most advanced frigates we have today. So why is it not in service? Well, the answer is a navy does a lot more than just fight. In fact, fighting is just a very small part of what a navy does. So let's go back to Jutland. It's a common thing for Krieg booze to claim that the German ships were better than the British because they had thicker armor, they had more compartmentalizations. I can't say that word. More compartmentalizations? You get what I mean. More bulkheads, etc., etc. You know, than the British boats. And the reason for this is quite simple. Britain had an empire. Germany didn't. And Britain policed that empire via its navy. So its ships often have to travel long distances, meaning they have to be capable in any water, be that tropical warm water of the Caribbean or the freezing cold of the North Sea. And being that those ships were often at sea on patrol for long periods of time, they have to have a lot of, shall we say, creature comforts for the men.
Germany didn't have an empire? What you talking about? Germany had a lot of places in Africa. Like, okay, not at the level of Britain, but come on.
Not only barracks, but bathrooms, shower units with hot water, mess halls, lounges where men could gather on their downtime and relax or play games, post offices to allow letters from home, and galleys which included not only just basic food, but varieties of offerings including onboard treats, sweets, and bakeries. German ships had none of that, as their philosophy was all about, well, you put that on shore, not the ship, allowing more space for armor and bulkheads, with the trade-off being that German ships couldn't be at sea for long periods of time. You could also argue that the British sailors were generally happier and were more motivated and more protective of their own ship because they saw it as home, which encouraged better naval standards and traditions, but it also meant the Royal Navy was far more capable when it came to non-combat operations. And like the British of the 1940s, America has an empire. It has overseas assets. It has a projection of power. Its ships need to be on patrol for very long periods of time. I've made this argument before, but this is the classic sci-fi argument of which ship is more capable.
This is much worse than British Empire, American Empire. Why? Because you're literally the one. When British Empire was British Empire, there were many other empires floating around. America is such a unique place right now. There is no one equal to America when it comes to like global projection. Russia is its own thing, but only at Russia. China is growing, but like China is growing, not even close to being grown. America has been grown for like past 80 years. You have too many shit around the world. You patrol too many things. That's why you have 12 aircraft carriers. You can be at any ocean at any time. You are at every place every time. Any place in the ocean, there's probably going to be something American there. Too many bases. You basically littered around the world. So your empire is very different. Your like power projection is so strong. You probably made too many enemies by now, where people want to see you go down. Yeah, you can't mistake and like make a mistake at a level where your navy is weaker. People will pick you off. Yeah, so America's at a place where you can't be weak. That's just not survivable.
Star Destroyer from Star Wars, or the Galaxy class from Star Trek, a ship built primarily for combat versus a ship built to deal with whatever the universe throws at it. Now take the idea of that and apply it to this thing. It has no creature comforts for the crew, there's nothing for you to do in your downtime but be bored, and bored sailors are a disaster waiting to happen. It has no capability outside of its primary function of being a big missile boat. It cannot do patrols, it cannot engage smaller craft, making it useless at anti-piracy operations. It cannot do search and rescue operations, convoy support, counter missile threats, lock down an airspace, escort other ships, or even defend itself if under attack. It's going to be detected the second it opens fire, and it will go up like a Roman candle if it gets hit. Doesn't appear to have any ability to reload those cells at sea from a tender vessel, meaning it will have to go back to port to resupply. So why can't it just be a submarine? Effectively, if you built this, it would have to sit in port until you needed it, because it cannot do anything else that you...
Yeah, okay, I don't want to like talk about cars too much, but I'm a car guy, and I'm going to give you another example. Where I live, there is a car called Toyota Fortuner, which is basically Toyota Hilux, but an SUV version, 7-seater SUV version. It's really famous here. It's like one of the top selling cars. It's costly for what it is, like because of taxes and things, but it's very famous. I have friends who buy that. I never cared about that car in the first place because I knew the flaws of it. I'm a car guy, but people don't. So people who buy that just for the stigma and reputation of it, like, oh, I have Toyota Fortuner, immediately sells it. A few months after. Why? Because it's an off-road car. What's wrong with an off-road car? It's capable, it's rugged, yeah, but it sucks with everything else. You want comfort? Yeah, you're not gonna get it. It has a ladder frame chassis, right? It has rigid axles front and back, so any kind of pothole, your whole car will shake. Road is slightly jittery, you will be constantly doing this. There is no comfort. Go, like 500 kilometers, your back will hurt. People immediately go to like something like a highway cruiser, monocoque chassis, independent suspension, highway cruisers. Even if they're not capable as a Fortuner, as a Toyota Fortuner, they immediately switch to something like a Jeep or some, other highway cruisers basically, Audis or whatever. They don't keep Fortuner, and some who do keep Fortuner, they just put it aside and buy something else. They don't use that much. They just keep it for stigma. This is equivalent of that. Capabilities is many, but that gets old pretty fast. How usable it is.
You need it do in peacetime, other than rack up all those expensive maintenance builds and be a massive shoot here first strike target for anyone wishing to actually go to war with you. It would be easier and cheaper just strapping a bunch of modular VLS cells into shipping containers to a cargo ship, an idea that keeps getting brought up every couple of years until someone points out that's actually a war crime. Oh, hi, China. You may question where I'm going with this. A war crime. Oh, hi.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, China. War crime and China doesn't rhyme. They don't care. Yeah, USA talks about that a lot with the, what is it called? Like, the marine ships, right? Which looks like aircraft carrier, but like it's smaller, not an aircraft carrier, but it's part of Marines. Yeah, they're trying to do that modular missile container thing.
Hi, China. You may question where I'm going with this. Apply that same logic to this. Even with its length of 270 meters, how are you going to fit the massive generators it will need? The capacitors, the engines, plus the fuel, the batteries they are proposing to fit to compensate for the lack of raw power, the command systems, the fire control, the radar, mission control, the massive bank of computers this thing will need, the data center required for its AI systems, all the ammunition for its comedic list of weapons, plus the 800 crew this thing is supposed to carry, and all the things they need just to live, like food, toilets, fresh water, air, plus all the creature comforts the average naval personnel is now used to, like being able to sit down, or corridors that they need to get around the ship, unless you envision them crawling through the vents like golems, plus things like heating and air conditioning so they don't freeze or boil alive given, I don't know, the weather, or just how much heat this thing's going to be producing below decks because of all the power requirements. Plus storage for the helicopters, the machine shop, the supply storage you're going to need for those, and the accommodation for the helicopter's crew, plus onboard medical facilities, the ability to launch small craft, a mess hall, a galley, a barber, storage for all the supplies you need, and when we have to ask the question, where is it all going to fit? If you want this to even begin to approach practicality, this ship is going to have to be at least 3 times its current
Isn't that basically a craft carrier at that point?
proposed size. And if you still think it's a good idea, I'm fucking sorry. Into the sea with you. Come back to land when you have an IQ greater than that of a fucking chicken sandwich. Oh god. You know what? I'm tired. I'm just tired, boss. I'm sorry. Every day it's something with this fuckdoodle, and now the reformers are swarming over him like...
I like how people are saying the common USS talking about Epstein and the USS Distraction. That is so true. I didn't thought of that, but yeah, it's probably that.
He's the last cock at the gay bar. I have never seen anything so fundamentally stupid as I have this. And the fact that he's naming it after himself proves it's nothing but a glorified ego project the likes
That is literally what I said at the start of the video. This is too much, man.
of which belong back in the fantasy world of Albonia, where appealing to El Jefe with something that can be painted red with flames on the side is the order of the day. Oh, but apparently, just paint it gold and give it to Trump and he'll give you whatever you want. Christ. And while I'm not opposed to the funding of the development of any of the mentioned weapon systems on this ship, what I am opposed to is yet further delays to the ship that America actually needs. Modern aircraft carriers, highly capable frigate, a few specialist ships capable of offshore bombardment that are at best the size of a cruiser, and a naval development program that expands the capabilities of the United States, allowing it to meet future threats by ramping up production, guaranteeing not only good-paying jobs for ship workers, but the capability to build and sell ships to NATO allies for a more secure future for your children. Because China is catching up. Oh, it's taking its sweet-ass time because it has a large gap in its understanding of doctrine and training and manufacturing capability that it needs to close before it can match what the United States and Europe is capable of doing today. But at least they understand that, and they understand how to go about doing that. And
Yeah, okay, China has many weak points, but I think when it comes to like production, they are going to be very overpowered because you made them overpowered when it comes to manufacturing. I think they're not going to stop with that. Their capabilities of manufacture things is going to be ridiculous. Like nobody can comprehend. Yeah, other things they're going to lack, and they need time to close the gap. So it's not going to be like, oh, in 10 years China's going to be powerful than USA. No, that shit's not going to happen. What are you talking about?
they are being incredibly precise and incredibly practical about it. Meanwhile, the United States is still whimsying around with disastrous concept after disastrous concept, while ignoring the obvious to the point where the incapability of its navy should one day soon be declared a national emergency. Take the ship, take the picture of it, and use it as a litmus test. If any naval admiral in the US Navy looks at this thing and says, "That's a good idea," launch them into the sea, because frankly, you guys need to stop fucking around.
Yeah, okay.
Booyah, Navy!
There you go. Hua and whatever she said there. Yeah. I think every single one of them are gonna say that this ship is awesome to just like stroke Trump's ego because it's a Trump ship. This is so fucked up about it. Nobody can oppose this. Because if you oppose this, you're automatically opposing Trump and nobody wanna risk that shit. Oh, I don't want Trump class frigate. What the fuck you just said? Battleship. What the fuck you said? Yeah, Trump would immediately get pissed off like somebody slapped him or something. So this will happen. That's the thing. Maybe in 3 years, like somebody will scrap this program because Trump is out of the door or something. Who the fuck knows? But yeah, this will happen. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, this is just weird, man. This is so fucked up. Like Trump is showing this kind of ego. Like, why is it leaking into military like this? Military has to be sensible. Like your politics, keep it with you. You want to do shit, like do it at that level. Don't do your personal projects into military. Oh, I want this battleship. Make it happen. What are you, fucking emperor at this point? This is ridiculous. Right, well, I'll see you next time.